Assalamu alaikum, sisters and brothers. Sulaiman Rahim here, Messenger of the Covenant, break of the 7 seals. Brothers and sisters, this is also the fire zone. The fire zone, brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters, what we want to talk about today is Israel. Who is Israel? What is Israel? You know, that's the main character in the Bible. Think about it. That's the main character in the Bible. That's also what drives so-called Western civilization, because they say they're Christians and they follow the Bible. And they've been fighting over the Bible for, what, at least 2,000 years that we know about, right? 500 years before Muhammad, then the Crusades after Muhammad for 1,000 years. They was in the Dark Ages, right? Run by the Pope, Catholic Church, and then the Protestant movement, right? Led by Martin Luther, right? The Lutherans, and then, you know, they come with the Puritans and, you know, see? So all these things, right? So if you really break it down, this whole society, this whole reality is based on the church, because it's the Christians that's ruling the world, and they say they rule it based on the Bible and their interpretation of the Bible. And so when you look at it, you see why things are happening like they're happening, because you have to look at their interpretation. See, we're not paying attention to these things. Like I said, here, we stop the bullshit here. We just tell you the facts. We just tell you the facts. It's the no bullshit zone. So when you break it down, if you go and study, if that's for you political brothers and sisters out there, and you spiritual brothers and sisters out there, and your scriptural brothers and sisters out there, right? And your scientific brothers and sisters out there, right? And your philosophical brothers and sisters out there, you need to understand this reality that we're in. Otherwise, you're lost. And you understand that once you understand the reality we're in, then you can start trying to make moves to change it or whatever. But you have to understand the reality you're in. Otherwise, you may be working against yourself. You may be working against yourself. And when you go and look, this reality is controlled by the Europeans, specifically, right? Well, Britain is not Europe. You have to understand that Britain's an island country. That's why I call it the British Isles, right? But America and Britain was only 2 world empires that the Europeans ever had. World empires, not European world empires or continental. I'm talking about world empires. That was British Empire, and then it was superseded by American Empire. And both of them claim to be grounded in biblical. And they take their marching orders from the Bible. So what is their interpretation of the Bible? Their interpretation of the Bible, that's what you have to understand its reality, because they built their reality off of this. So their interpretation of the Bible is that you have these chosen people. Now we're talking about Gog and Magog. Gog and Magog is America and Britain. See, Magog means the mother of Gog. See, America came out of Britain. But their interpretation, right, is that the reason there's black people is because they was cursed black. That's why I show you it's Moses and everybody else is white. But black people are different. They was cursed black because the story of Noah. Shem was cursed black because he took and did some unspeakable thing, right? Which they say. So his descendants after him, which from Ham, were cursed to be slaves forever. And that was supposed to be Africans. So God said that they would be, God cursed them. That's their interpretation. Okay? So that gives you the credit, that gives you the justification of us being over here as slaves, and that's the way they treat us, because God said so, because we was cursed to be slaves, because we was low character. See? And we did immoral things. You see, that's the characterization of us. Okay. Then you have the Jews. See, they were initially the chosen people of God, but because they rejected Jesus, right? Then they're the ones was chosen. They were supposed to be the seed of Abraham. They were supposed to be chosen people, but because they rejected Jesus and caused Jesus to be crucified according to them, then that means that was taken from them, right? That covenant was taken from them and transferred over to in other words, let's back up here. They said there was 12 tribes, right? Those were supposed to be the 12 tribes of Israel. But the tribe of Judah was the top tribe. That's why the term Jews come from, Judah, because they was the top tribe. And that was a chosen tribe. That was God's special tribe. This is their interpretation. See? But they rejected Jesus. And so it was taken from them and given to the other 11 tribes, which are the Europeans. Because they're supposed to be Israel. See, the Europeans are supposed to be Israel. And the Jews are supposed to be the tribe of Judah. See? That's their idea. They're not going to tell you that way, but that's their idea. They're Israel, right? And the tribe of Judah, Jews, are the top tribe, but they lost that privilege, right? Because they rejected Jesus, and so it went to the other 12 tribes, the 11 tribes. See? So they became the spiritual seed of Abraham. You see? And there's something to that spiritual side too, because that gets some confusion, because all Europeans don't see it as their Israel. They see it as they're another people, but still in all, it still comes up the same thing, that the blessings and the position of being God's chosen people was transferred from according to the New Testament, from the Jews to them. So in other words, the bottom line is they're the new chosen people, right? And so the promised land that's in that covenant, see, brothers and sisters, if you don't know about the covenant of Abraham, you need to read it, because most of you don't know about it. They don't want you to know about it. See, when Martin Luther King mentioned it in the promised land speech, they told him not to do it, and they killed him the next day, because they don't want you to know about that covenant. So you need to read it both in the Old Testament, so-called Old Testament, and the New Testament. So they can't be said it was abrogated. Because that's the defining, that covenant is the defining scripture that defines this reality. The whole reality is based on that scripture. Right? So you need to read it, that whole thing. Because Farrakhan, he tells you just the top part. And that's the reason he don't say the whole thing. See, when you read, maybe you'll understand. So that means America became the promised land. See, in their mind, America is the promised land. And so when they found America, they found the natives here, well, they was heathen. They was just in the way. So they could, because America's the promised land, promised to them, anybody in the way deserved to be wiped out, destroyed, because God said this is their land. That's the promised land. You understand? So therefore they wiped them out. See? And that was okay, because they was in the way, they was heathen. They actually called them heathen. And then to fulfill the whole situation, to round it out, right? Then they bought Ham, that's us over here, because we was slaves. That fill out the picture. See? That's the Old Testament, that's their version of the Old Testament, and it fills it out. So in other words, they following God's will. That's why they think they're chosen people. America is great, a loving place. It's God fearing. God bless America. God's behind America. You understand? That is what's going on. That's why they can say those things. And most of them believe it because that's what they taught. See? And that was going on, right? And the thing is, remember, since the Jews tried to crucify Jesus, according to them, they succeeded in doing it, and the covenant was taken away from them, then they was hated by the new spiritual seed of Abraham, the Europeans. And that's what, so they oppressed them for the last 2,000 years. They oppressed them. And it culminated in the 40s where they tried to eradicate them all together. They was put them in smoke, in furnaces and burn them up in smoke. That's how that came about. Because they called Christ killers. They hated the Jews. They said, y'all killed our Christ. You understand? And y'all had a promise, but y'all turned away. And y'all hate our Christ. And so forth, so on. So they hated them, and they was oppressed by it. So you see, that's where all this is coming from. And remember, America and Britain is determining world policy, world foreign policy. They're dictating world policy. Because they're the rulers in the world right now. God and Magog are the rulers in the world right now, according to chapter 20. So they would be in the pit for 1,000 years, and then they would come out, and they would cover the whole planet. So they would rule. In the Quran, it says Adam, right, was the new ruler, and they would have rulership. It was evil to make relationship love, but still they would rule for a period of time, about 500 years. You understand, brothers and sisters? You starting to get the picture? See? This is all biblical stuff. All the stuff happening around you is their interpretation of the Bible. And once you understand that, then you start to understand what's going on and why they think the way they think and why they do what they do. And why they seem to have no remorse for what they're doing because they think they're doing God's will. The Bible says there'll be a time when people think they'll be hurting you and pressing you, thinking they're doing God's will. It says it right in the scripture. So we're trying to lay a foundation here, brothers and sisters, so you understand what's going on based on their interpretation. But remember, the Bible is a sealed book. It's a sealed book. So their interpretation is wrong because it's sealed unless they unseal it, and they have not. But anyway, that's their interpretation. So therefore, based on that interpretation, you see, based on that interpretation, right, that's why you see things that they are. That's the base of their rule. See? And then it says, he who bless Israel will be blessed. Who curses Israel will be cursed. So in other words, if you're against America, you cursed. And so that gives them right to do anything against you. Because remember, they're the new Israel now. See? But if you're for America, they do all kinds of things for you. It says, he who curses Israel will be cursed. He who blesses Israel will be blessed. And it says, through Israel, all the nations will be blessed. So they think they're the ones, should be the ones that take care of the nations and all that kind of stuff. So they figure they get in everybody's affairs. They're meddling in everybody's affairs. They're getting all kinds of, see? Yes, because that they deriving their power and their authority and their justifications from the Bible. Their interpretation. And that's why you need to understand that. Now, if that interpretation gets disrupted, then there's a problem. Because remember, they have clean conscience and everything else. Because that's their interpretation, and they're following it. So they can enslave us and beat us and destroy us. They can take this country and have genocide and steal this country. They can do all these things, and it's okay because the Bible says okay. Their interpretation. So they have a clean conscience. And they think they're God-fearing people because they're following God's law, God's rule. You understand? But if some disrupts that, then that could be chaos. See? So what happened? They was going on like that. Like I said, and they was still in their idea about the Jews. They was wiping them out. That was going to end that. They was going to end them. That would end that problem. You see. So there was going to be the soul, because the Jews were still, there was contention there. The Jews were still laying claim that they was the real seed of Abraham. They were still making that claim. And they was claiming that, they were still chosen people. So there was a conflict, there was a competition between the Jews and the Europeans for who was the real chosen people. And the Jews, because they're very united, they was always able to penetrate and rise and take control of the European countries. That's what happened in Germany. It's happening in America, right? And so there was always a threat to the Europeans. Because by them being able to do that, then that means that was solidifying their claim that they were the chosen people, because they was always be able to take control of the Europeans who claimed they was Israel, but the Jews was always able to outsmart them and take control of their countries. You think, I heard they say they hate communism. Oh, communism. You know who started communism? Karl Marx was Jewish. It was the Jews that overthrew the Tsar and everything, took over and started communism. See, you got to check your history, brothers and sisters. See, they took over that country. That's why it's always a threat. And then communism was the biggest threat in the world today. But that was inspired by Jews. They the ones that started it. You see, there was always a threat. So therefore, they decided to just get rid of them. See, because every time we leave, watch them turn around, they got control of us. See, and they keep claiming that they're the true seed, right? Even though we're not the spiritual seed. So no, we're gonna get rid of them. So there's no competition for that role anymore. You start to understand, brothers and sisters, how this thing works. And then somebody threw a monkey wrench in. Oh boy. Did he ever? And you think he was insignificant. So they try to make you think he was insignificant. But they know he wasn't insignificant, because he messed the whole thing up. You see? Because along came Elijah Muhammad, and what'd he say? He came and said, no, the original people in America, the black people that you've been oppressing for 40 years, they are a true seed of Abraham. And he had the legal, the social, the spiritual proof. Now he had the evidence, because here we've been here. We was here. And we've been in at that time nearly 400 years in a foreign land that's not ours, being oppressed. And we not Ham, we actually Israel. We are actually Israel. Uh-oh. See, now, if he didn't have the evidence and the proof, if he didn't have anything, then, because a lot of people might say that, but he had the evidence. We was the evidence. He had the scriptural proof. See? Yeah. You understand? So, and people was listening. And it made sense. I mean, the evidence is right here. The evidence is everything. See? That turned everything up on his head. Because we no longer Ham. And if we true seed Abraham, then they're not Israel. They're not following God's will. They're not good people. They're genocidal maniacs. They're oppressors. They're rapists and killers and destroyers, right? Pedophiles. Washington Jefferson was rapists. You see? You understand? They stole people's land. They followed the part of the scripture says they came out to steal, kill, and destroy. That was what they was doing. So that was destroy everything. That was destroy the whole religious. Remember, because the fact that they knew Israel, that was the foundation of this reality. For them, that was the justification of doing everything they was doing. So when he says that, it's we gotta slam dunk this one. And we gotta neutralize this. We can't let that narrative catch hold. And Elijah Muhammad was growing. See, and he was getting people to listen to him. And they said, well, we gotta stop this. So then they went into act. They went into this is 1940s. Remember, during this time they was actually wiping out the Jews that they called the final solution. That was going to get rid of them. There was no competition for that title of Israel anymore. See? And then, suddenly, now it wasn't just Germany. All the nations was out to get rid of Israel. They didn't care. Nobody tried to help them or anything. They tried to no one tried to help them. Even when they came over here to escape and came over here in boatloads and they were turning back, they knew they were turning back to their death. No one bombed in World War II, no one bombed the concentration camps. They knew they were there, they didn't bomb them. Let them burn up, they didn't care. The most popular preacher in America during that time was a Caucasian, and he was totally anti-Jewish. I can't remember his name was, but he was very popular, bigger than Billy Graham, all of them. He was a political preacher. This was going on. So when Elijah Muhammad made that claim and was sticking, they said, oh, we got to go into action. Because we can't let that claim take hold. Because if it is, then we claim we're some bright light on the mountain, but we're really a shitstorm in the valley. You see, we ain't the great good people we thought we were, but we followers of Satan because we're doing the works of Satan. You see, because if we're doing those things, we're doing the work of Satan. We're not following God, and they knew exactly what that meant. So they had to go into motion, action. So all of a sudden, the people that they was burning up the day before, right? All of a sudden, their shit became honey. Everybody was eating the honey. All of a sudden, they loved Jews. See? So they went back to not them being the spiritual, but now the Jews, they did the true seed of Abraham. And set up false Israel over there to prove that they were. Because they're returning. That's what the Bible says. They're returning home. See? So they set up. And I get back into chapter 13, but I'm not going to all of that in Revelation. But they set up. And they spend billions, maybe perhaps trillions of dollars keeping that going because they got to keep that lie going so everybody see, no, they the true seed of Abraham. Because see, they came back like they said. They're defeating all these armies, which is like that's bullshit too. Because the only reason why they was defeating those armies because the rulers allowed them to defeat them because they had an agenda too. They had an agenda too because they didn't want us to come back either. The Arabs didn't want us to come back either. Because you would tell me if you got 100 times the population and the Jews had no military, they had very low military, very little anything, right? They very little organization, and they would defeat all the Arab armies. Egypt, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria. And you believe that? No, because the leaders, they couldn't tell the people that they wanted them to be there because they wanted that lie too. See? Because when you understand the whole thing, you understand why. They wanted that lie too. They wanted them to be there too because they didn't want to hear that crap about we being true seed of Abraham either. Because that means when you read the whole covenant, when you read the entire covenant, you understand, it says the promised land that we would get after we leave out here would be Arabia. It's between the Euphrates River and Ethiopia. That means that's Arabia. So they don't want us talking like that either. You see? Because we're Isaac and they're Ishmael. They're our brothers, but they didn't turn white now. And they land claim to that title. See, they land claim to a title by land. See? But they got the Jews land claim and title by identity. Because they pretend to be us. So everybody got a piece of us. And we're going to talk about that, see? You understand? So now you start to get a picture. So they set them up. So and they made sure nobody talks about that anymore. When Martin Luther King did, they killed him and said, you can't talk about no promised land, these people. Because he went to Elijah Muhammad and Elijah Muhammad schooled him. He went out and gave a speech the next day after he was dead. No promised land speech. He said, we're going back home. He said, well, he don't know if he get there with us, but we're going. See? And next day he was there because he's not supposed to say that. Because it disrupts everything. They don't want black folks thinking that way. They don't want black folks united. Because they might unite behind that idea. And that would be very dangerous. Am I laying this foundation out for you clear enough, brothers and sisters? See? It's all biblical. See? So they had to go into motion to do that. And they did a few other things too. See, I'm not going into all the details. They had to do a lot of cover up, but that was the main one right there. See, and the Arabs is on board with that because they occupy our land. So what I'm going to go to, I'm kind of like, I'm going to go into a whole lot of historical stuff here, a lot of spiritual stuff. But what I want to get to the point where it says, right, through you all nations will be blessed. See, through Israel all nations will be blessed. That's that's where I'm going to focus my comments right now. See. Now, false Israel is getting all this money and support and everything because they pretend to be us. So they're blessed, right? Because of us. Because by stealing our identity, they're blessed. They're rich over there. They said the Israelis, the so-called Israel, false Israel over there, they said they're the richest by per capita in the world. They get all this aid from America and everybody else because they pretend to be us. If it was with us, we'd have all that be coming to us. So they're blessed because of us by stealing our identity. The Arabs, see, look how rich they are because they're selling the oil from our land. It's our land, and they get fabulously rich because they are selling to our enemies our natural resources. Are you getting the picture, brothers and sisters? Now say, through us all nations will be blessed. You getting the picture? How did America become so powerful? Not just because of energy there, but because we're here, right? They got free labor for hundreds of years. And on top of that, right, they stole our creativity. That's another thing they don't want you to know about. See, because you ask yourself a basic question. Why is all the innovation coming from America? I mean, they claim they're superior people, they're superior race. You got Germany, it's almost all white folks there, at least it used to be. Russia, same thing. All other European countries. But yet innovation came out of here. Cars, planes, internet, iPhones, all that stuff came out of here. Why? It should be the other way around because they hell the niggas here. I mean, it was polluted here, but the white folks was clear all over the place and they supposed to be superior. But it was coming from here. It was coming from here. You see? You say, well, oh, China. No, China's not innovative. They're copiers. What if they invented? They steal all of America's technology and they're good at copying, but they're not good in inventing. Tell me something they have invented. Tell me some technology they have invented themselves. See? Tell me something Russia has invented. Any other country has invented. Because all the stuff that we see came out of here. The internet, all of it. Because we here. They stealing it from our creativity. Because we're very creative people. We're spatially oriented. And they steal it from us. And they use the demons to do it. Who is the demons? That's their children from raping our women. See, you go by nature, but they deceive you by telling you go by skin tone. So you don't see the hidden enemy, the wolves in sheep clothing. The scriptures tell us half of the 34 million people in America, blacks in America, half of them are demons. They're really master's children. They live in master's house. You see them on TV and in movies and everything because they're in master's house. That's master's children. And they always tell you we should love America. We should salute the flag and all this kind of stuff. You know, master love, master's good. We're making progress, right? Because they are Caucasian. See? Because you are what your father is. That's biologically correct. That's mathematically correct. That's scientifically correct. But they tell you, no, it's skin tone. That's bullshit. See, that's what, if the wolves got caught eating the lambs because they got sheep clothing on, the first thing would tell you, oh, it ain't nature. It's skin tone. See, look, see, I got lamb's clothes on. They want you to think skin tone, because then you wouldn't look past the tone to see that that's a wolf there. That's why they're pushing your skin tone. Oh, one drop of black blood makes you black. That's bullshit. That's why I keep telling skin tone, so they can have the demons come amongst you and destroy you while you don't know it. The body has the same problem. That's what cancer is. When cancerous cells cloak themselves as healthy cells, they take healthy genetic material and cover themselves. So when antibodies come, they think it's a healthy cell, so they leave it alone. That's why it's hard to get rid of cancer cells. So they go around destroying other cells and nobody undetected and nobody bothers them. And that's why I tell you skin tone is not skin tone, it's nature. And so you got that's why you got all this stuff going in Chicago, killing. That's all the demons doing that. That's not us. See, and they do all the stuff on TV, women shaking their ass naked. That's demons. But we get the hit for it because they look like us. You say, man, why? See, cause if you got wolves out there in sheep clothing, and you got running around acting like wolves, they think all lambs are like that. But they ain't. They act like wolves, because they are wolves. But they look like lambs. So you got these black people that act like white people, but they look like black people. And so that's what you see in the movies, and they think that's us. It ain't us. It's them. Understand that. So they use them to steal our creativity because they communicate with us. White folk have no idea what we're talking about. But the demons, they come in and steal our creativity, everything, run it back and give it to master. That's why it says when we left out in Exodus, it says take all the gold and silver. See, you have to understand, angel, understand that. They're not talking about metal, because we're the gold and the silver. It says when we were left out, it plundered Egypt. That means if we leave, America goes back to the banjo and the way they were before us. Because remember, what kind of music they had? Beethoven and Mozart. That didn't even move your finger. It was nothing to us. That was great to them. That doesn't even original person's finger. I mean, you hear that shit, it don't mean nothing to you. It don't mean nothing. It don't move anybody, but that's great stuff to them. It's just like, they love Michael Jackson because he taught them choreography. They know that's not dancing. Just like they used to love Chubby Check because he came to do the twist, right? And everybody doing the twist. That wasn't dancing. Because they can't. They are dancing, but because their hearts are simple, it's not complicated as our hearts, then they don't hear the same music you hear. They're dancing according to what they're hearing, so they are dancing. But it's simplistic dancing because they have a simplistic heart that doesn't have the vibrations and the frequencies that we have. So they dancing what they feel. And to us, man, I ain't not dancing because they're a stripped down version of us. That's another story altogether. So we see the Arabs getting rich off of selling our resources. The Jews got rich off of you stealing the ID. America got rich off of using our brain power, because that's the story of Joseph. Remember, when Joseph was taken into slavery, he was in prison, right? He was in prison in Egypt, right? And they didn't know what to do. He saved the economy. See, they couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. He had the creativity to figure it out. He saved them. And how did he get rewarded? All his descendants was enslaved. And they was told to make brick without straw. That means you had to be creative to do that. You got to read between the lines, brothers and sisters. You got to be creative to do that. So they stole our creativity, and they still stealing it. That's why so that's how they getting rich. Now our labor and our creativity. But then we're talking about, when you want to talk about what's left? You got China and India. How did China get rich? How did China get so powerful? Because the jobs that came as a result of our creativity went there. They sent them over there and give it back to us. They give it to them. And our AI jobs now that came, the industrial jobs went to China. And then when they went to AI age, the AI jobs go to India. They make sure you don't have it. They build prisons for you. Yes, so all the nations are being blessed from us. You understand now, brothers and sisters? That's what it means. And they want to keep it that way. They want to keep it that way because if we come to power, all that ends. See, because we leave here, America loses innovation, the power of innovation. They make it so powerful, right? The Arabs lose control of our resources. The Jews lose, right? They lose the ability to use our name to get rich, right? See, and China and India doesn't benefit, right, from the jobs that came out of our creativity. They don't get that anymore. Everybody collapses if we get out here. So that makes them our enemy because they want to keep things exactly like they are right now. Because everybody benefits but us. Everybody benefits from us. Brothers and sisters, you scientific brothers out there, you political brothers, you spiritual brothers, your scriptural brothers. Am I saying anything that don't make any sense? This is reality. This is exactly what's happening. This is exactly what's happening. You see. And they don't want you to see that. And they got the demons. Their whole purpose is to make sure you never see it. And make sure you never go anywhere. Where's Farrakhan, the chief demon? Louis Eugene grounds the NOI back with Legion. His whole idea is to tell you ain't going nowhere. We need to stay here. America belongs to us. We need to blend into America. See, we need to bring them into the NOI. They ain't devils no more. His whole program, right, is to keep us producing for massa. The worst case is we just moved next door in 6 states, but we're still under control of massa, and we're still giving our creativity. See, so in other words, for those the separatists, he give you that little, he compromised on that one. Well, y'all want to be separate, so okay, we'll be separate. We just move next door. See, because he's a lying dog, and he walked through the scriptures, prove he's a lying dog. Just walk through Exodus. See, he's Aaron that deceived all the people and got all his followers destroyed at the end. You understand, brothers and sisters? You understand what's going on here? How this works? So I said, through you, all nations were blessed. All nations are blessed. Because of us. You remember that story about hidden figures? See, they every now and then, they slip and let a little light come through. If you watch that movie, the only reason they got up there because those sisters did. Those white folks couldn't do it. They had all the education. They was PhDs and everything else. They couldn't do it. These sisters, most of them probably had associate degree at best, maybe a bachelor's degree. Because remember, somebody had to go back to school, and they was able to put them because the white folks couldn't figure it out, and these sisters was showing them how to use math in ways they didn't have no idea, never conceived of. Yet still, that was their mathematics. And there was brothers involved in that too. But they won't tell you. See, I know this whole story. They ain't telling the whole story. Because they will never show black men being smarter than white people. They will never do that. They won't go that far. They will not show a black person smarter than white people. White men, they will never go that far. But they'll slide in with females. And that was one of the first times they ever did it. And I don't think they'll do that again. You see, because it kind of like tipped their hand a little bit, showed you what all the white boys could do it, and these sisters, man, they had to go in and show them how to get into space, show them how to use mathematics. See, every now and then they slip up and let a little light through, and mostly don't pay attention to it. We, true Israel. Through us, all the nation was blessed. They're rich and powerful because of us. And we're poor and nothing because they're parasites living off of. See, what happens is parasites, they live off of their host. And by sucking all the host's blood, and if you get enough parasites, they'll make it anemic and they'll actually kill the host after a while because they suck all his blood and become anemic and then he dies. And so we're anemic now because everybody's sucking our blood, including the demons. Farrakhan's been sucking black folks' blood for 40-some years. He hasn't produced a damn thing. Parasites don't produce anything. They just take. Now, where's Farrakhan produced? Nothing. He's going to come up here later on today, because this is Sunday morning, right? He's gonna come up here early, some later on today, and talk this bullshit because he said this is the last public appearance. Because he's on his deathbed. They said, but he ain't dying. Well, how come his last public appearance? See? And then what does he produce? He's been given all kinds of promises for the last 40-some years, but what does he produce? Exactly nothing. Because the parasite, but he's living luxuriously. He's been pimping his sisters, had these fundraisers to get money for him. He's been doing that. He had no shame pimping these sisters, because when you get close up, that's what happens. That's where he gets money from. Because the so-called brothers with him, they ain't doing a damn thing. He can't get them to do anything. If you push them, they'll walk away. But sisters, they warriors, man. They got out there and fundraisers all over and send the money to him. And then he can walk around with his stars, other demons, right? All this rich and famous, because all the demons are rich and famous. I'm not going to energy deprivation. See, I hit on a little bit. Bro, I will hit on that a little bit. Because, brother, it's simple. Some of these things are just so simple. Now, you brothers and sisters that are familiar with the Quran, your spiritual brothers and sisters, your Quranic brothers and sisters, it says, in the beginning, the earth and the heavens were one. That means all that energy out there used to be the atmosphere of the earth. And that's energy. And so we had that energy. That means we were very energetic beings. We had so intense, we had unimaginable amounts of energy. Because all the energy, all those constellations, Quran tells you that. All the energy after all those stars and galaxies and constellations used to be our atmosphere. That means we had a tremendous amount of energy that you can't even imagine. And then we spanned it, right? And as we expand it, there's less and less energy here. Until it gets this full expansion, there's very little energy here. And that's why we have very little energy. We have enough energy to control ourselves anymore. That's how we end up in slavery. That's how, that's energy deprivation. But now the universe is contracting back. And they tell you, it's momentous in the heavens and the earth, but it comes above a sudden. That means energy waves are coming back. They come back approximately every 50 years, right? And we got the first one, about 1865. The next one, 50 years later, right? When Noble Drew Ali and those type of people, that's the mental side. So we start thinking mentally, we start coming, because we didn't know about Africa, nothing. So we started getting that kind of information. But the first one, it broke out physical change. The next one started breaking out mental change. And then 50 years later, the social change. That's the so-called civil rights movement, right? And now we're 50 years now we're getting ready to break all chains because energy is coming back. So we're now being energized. So I leave that there. That's a very simple thing. But let me say one more thing about that. If you understand that, and that's very simple, if you understand that the universe expands and contracts, you understand a simple principle, right? That means at some point in time, we would be so energy deprived that we couldn't rule the country. We couldn't rule ourselves anymore. We couldn't maintain a nation. We couldn't maintain a civilization. But if you took another people that didn't require as much energy of us as we did, then they could still do that. And that's enter Dr. Yaqub. And that's what he did. He took a stripped down version of us, we Lamborghinis. He took a stripped down version, took all the accessories, everything else, and come up with a Volkswagen Beetle that required, if it was 10% energy that we required, then they had the power to rule everything else. There you go. And they would rule until we came out of energy deprivation, which we began to come out of energy deprivation in 1948. That's no story. But the bottom line here, brothers and sisters, you understand this whole society, this whole reality we're in is based on Abrahamic covenant and who is Israel. If they're Israel, then America's, hey, they're good people. They found God's will. They're doing everything right, so they have no guilt in their hands. But if they're not, and we are, then they will resist that with everything they can because that means they have to come face to face with who they really are. Devils, evil. Right? They will not come out. They go for stealing, killing, right? And destroying. See, they're monsters. They're the beast. They don't want to think that way. But when they come face to face with that's who they are, how do you think they're going to act? That's why they've been trying to protect them from that reality of seeing themselves who they really are. Because their interpretation of who they are is based on who Israel is. See, that's the cornerstone, based on who Israel is. But if it turns out that we're Israel, because man, if they know who they say it is, that means we slaves. We're supposed to be slaves. They're abusing us, and that nothing, because that's God's will. We want to be slaves to do anything they want to with us. But if it turns out that we're Israel, that turns everything on its head, and they're beasts, they're murderers, they're killers, they're rapists, they're no good, right? They're devils. They're the beasts that the Quran says that rise up from the earth that will speak to us. They're the beasts they talk about in Revelation. See what I'm saying? And when they come to, if they come to face that reality, what you think? They go from one being angels to outright stinking, no good devils that God hates. He doesn't love. And if they come there, if you hit with that overnight, say for instance you walk around and you're the ugliest person in the world, but you never seen a mirror and everybody's telling you you're beautiful, and you don't never seen yourself. You never seen yourself. Everybody's telling you you're beautiful, you're beautiful. So you act beautiful, you talk beautiful, right? Because you think you're beautiful. And then you bust up into a mirror one day and you see the reality of it. What would that do to your mind? How would you react? Would you want to get rid of that mirror? That'd be one of the first things you want to do. But still, you still know the truth. And that's what happens with it. This what they call it, the desolation. See, that's what happens with that. See, in Daniel they call it desolation of appallment. See, when you see the abomination of desolation, see, in Daniel they call it the desolation of appallment. So I always get, say which one's the best, but okay, we're going to stick with abomination of desolation. See, because Daniel says a different way, and there's a reason. I don't want to go into that. Abomination of desolation. What that means is that they're going to war in the Middle East. They already told you, false Israel is going to war with Iran. Now, a lot of Christians are praying for this war because the whole idea is that when it has war, Israel is going to be kind of like knocked back on his heels. And it's going to be in trouble. And then Jesus is going to come and save them because they're going to finally call on Jesus, because remember, they against Jesus. And he's going to come and save them. And he's going to get rid of Arabs and everybody else. And that's going to be the new, everything start over again. Jesus is going to come back, and then that's a new world. That's what they believe. That's what they're being taught. You see. So we're still hammering that situation. We're going to be destroyed too, because we the worst. We're the bottom of this list, right? We're top of this to be destroyed. The bottom of this when it comes to anything else. But the abomination of desolation says, when you see the abomination of desolation stand in a place that should not be, to me, they overstand. They saying they're Israel over there, and they shouldn't be there. That's why they're abomination of desolation, because they stand there, but they're not true. So if you take it from that point of view, that they're not the true seed of Abraham, and we are, that they're not Israel, and we are, that means they're the abomination of desolation, standing over in the Holy Land where they should not be. So when we see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, no, the desolation is nigh. That means the destruction is nigh. Who? Jerusalem's destruction is nigh. Who's in Jerusalem? They are. When you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, no, desolation is nigh. That means Jerusalem is about to be destroyed. So when you see that, flee. I'm not going into all the details about that. But the bottom line is that they will be destroyed. If they're destroyed, that cannot happen. Because that's the whole basis. Once they return, God will protect them and they cannot be destroyed. So if they destroyed, that means what? That they was never a true seed of Abraham. That calculation we made in an instant. That means we must be, because remember, that's the controversy. Who is? So they're there as proof that they are. But now, once it's saying we are, that means the calculation is done like there's a we are. That means they're the monsters, they're the beasts. They ran to a mirror and saw, man, oh damn, I'm ugly. I'm ugly as hell. I'm the ugliest thing on the planet. But I thought I was beautiful. And that'll blow your mind. It'll be shockwaves done all through the planet. See, everybody's gonna see that they're ugly as hell. Not just America, but the whole world's gonna see they're ugly as hell. That they was some genocidal maniacs. That they stole people's land. They wiped out people. They oppressed black people. They did all these evil things. See, because they was lying. They was never Israel to begin with. That was one big lie. And they come instantly. And who's the reason why that happened? Who's the mirror? Us. First thing you do is get rid of that mirror. See? That's the problem. That's why it says flee. Because these people, you're not fleeing from the army, you're not fleeing from the Navy, you're not fleeing from the Air Force, you're not fleeing from the military police, because they say you can't go back in your house. You can't make a call. You can't do anything. You have to flee. You can't go back and get your baby. Says do not go back to the house to get anything. Flee. Because who's going to be after you? Your next door neighbor. Because now they realize they're the beast, that you're the true seed of Abraham. They know what you have done. They've done to us. And their mind is being rocked. Because now Jesus ain't for them no more. They've been worshiping Satan. You have no idea what it's going to do to their minds. There'll be shockwaves going through their minds. Their mind's going to be like jelly. It's going to be like crushing. That's going to be too much pressure on them. Because they think they're going to heaven and now they're being destroyed. They're going to hell. I mean, all this going to be instant. How their mind's going to be to handle that. And you the reason. If they get rid of you, then that solves the problem. If they get rid of you, that solves the problem, because that means we could not possibly be Israel if they got rid of us. You understand? That's the only solution they could have. They got to get rid of us instantly. They get their mind straight so they can see they're beautiful again. By eradicating us. You understand, brothers and sisters? They make it clear enough for you. They got to eradicate us immediately. That pressure's going to be too much on their minds. That's how you flee. It says flee. Don't think, go back, get your house. Don't go back, house, nothing. Don't go back, call nobody. Don't go back, say, Mom, you better get out of here. Say, flee, just go. Because they're going to come right next door and blow your damn brains out, cut your throat. Because that pressure's going to be too much on them. Because that's not supposed to happen over there. Paul says, that means you the true seed of Abraham. And they know what they've done. Hope you understand, brothers and sisters. See, I try to put all this together for you. All the nations are blessed because of us. See? And they want to stay that way. But whose Israel is the foundation of this reality, and false Israel over there in the Middle East is the cornerstone of this reality. This reality began in 1948. This reality began 6,000 years ago, but it took this particular form that we have right now in 1948. That's why I said of Christ and Antichrist. And that's what's happening, brothers and sisters. So you spiritual brothers and sisters, you political brothers and sisters, right? You scriptural brothers and sisters, you better pay attention. Because that war is about to take place. They think they're talking about war with Russia. No, America's not going to war with Russia right now. They're in conflict with Russia, but they're not. That's the what's those people? What they call whatever. They're fighting Russia. America's not fighting Russia. See, people thought, that's not the war. The war would take place in the Middle East first. And that's where America and Britain and false Israel will be taken down by Iran and Syria with help. So they're going to get help. But they're going to blame it on Russia. That's how America gets in war with Russia. They're going to say Russia was help Iran. That's why I was able to kick America and Britain out of there. And then false Israel, left alone, unassisted, will be surrounded, will be under siege. And that's when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, and when you see that says the desolation is nigh. See, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, we see the desolation of abhorrent setting in a place where it should not be standpoint. That's what it's talking about. So when you see that, that means its destruction is nigh. That means it's about to be destroyed. That means flee, because once it's destroyed, it's going to be too late. They said, that's a warning for you. We said, run. Because they're going to kill you because they don't expect false Israel to go down. They don't expect it to go down because they're thinking, according to their theology and everything, even if false Israel is surrounded, Jesus is going to come and save them. And when Jesus doesn't come and save them and they destroy it, that blows everything that's a cornerstone's reality is taken away. They make calculations like that, and they're going to slaughter you because you're the reason why they now are beasts, unredeemable beasts, who God is going to destroy and put them in the fiery furnace forever and ever and ever, because that's what they teach themselves. Do you understand, brothers and sisters? Hope you understand. And the demons, right? Our problem is the demons, they're going to be dispatched. It says, soon I will dispatch the demons because they are our worst enemy. They are hidden enemy. They're going to be dispatched during this period of time. See, because their whole objective to keep us divided, confused, and all this bullshit. And it says only Suleiman could identify because you didn't know what a demon was till I told you. You thought it was some kind of Buffy vampire thing, some spooky thing. No. Now I told you who they are. They're devil seed. They're black-faced devil seed called tar babies. See? They're skin folk, not kinfolk. It doesn't go by skin tone. It goes by nature. See? The wolves in sheep clothing will tell you, oh, skin tone. You see, I look like a lamb. See? Then why are you eating sheep then? See? We need to ask that question. Why you love Master so much then? If you original, why Master done all stuff to us, and why you love him? Why you identify with America so much? We did this. Why are you thinking like that? If you really original person, you be shit. We want to get the hell out of here. We want to get rid of these beasts. Understand, brothers and sisters. But the abomination of desolation is only days away. And my job to make many of you aware of it, because it says first you have to recognize it to flee. If you don't recognize it, then you're going to hesitate and you're going to be dead. And as the days go on, I'm going to get a bigger platform and I'm going to get more people who understand it. Because it says this gospel, which is Injil, is Arabic word for gospel, we're preaching all the world. Then the end will come. So that's going to happen. So I'm going to reach out to you, brothers and sisters, to let you know. See, it's not going to please the demons because it doesn't matter. But some of you, right, will save you. But there's going to be millions of us, it's going to be slaughtered. Millions of us are going to be slaughtered because they don't even know. And they have no idea what the abomination of desolation is, no idea what the baby coming covenant is. And when they see it, they don't, that's something in the news. Oh man, look, man, Israel's in trouble. See, that's where they get knocked on the door. Bam! This blew mama's head off. Bam! This blew dad's head off. Oh man, they get ready to blow my boom. Brothers and sisters, you might, it says those days, if those days were not shortened, no soul would be left alive. What does that mean? That means they're going to, all of it be wiped out. That means Master Muhammad has to do something to shorten those days. And that gets into chapter 6 on the 6th seal, where it says, a wind blew that caused the figs, right, to fall before they was ready, before they was ripe. Because that's their plan to get rid of us. And by him doing what he's done, it gives us a warning. Because this happens before they was able to implement their plan. That gives us a little warning enough to flee. Because we wouldn't be able to flee because they was going to do this in a way where we'd never, they said, let's deal with them shrewdly, where they would never see it coming. The Master Farm House is going to give us, set it up so we get a warning, so we can flee. See, some of us that already know we have to flee because we're going to be going already. We're going to be away from them already. But if you don't know, hope you understand, brothers and sisters. I try to put it together for you. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave it there, brothers and sisters. See? See. Fire zone out. Let's see here. Yes, that's it, brothers and sisters. Remember, abomination of desolation, when you see that war is about to take place, and then the war with Russia will come. See? Partly because they're going to blame Russia for their defeat. There's many other things I'm not going to right now, brothers and sisters, but pay attention. See, we are the true Israel. That's why it's spelled the way it's spelled. It's there, it's spelled backwards because they're not the true Israel. We are Israel. 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 We Israel. See, they're the fake with the Rael. That's another story altogether, brothers and sisters. Assalamu alaikum.